Hi everyone. Today we did get a bit of a gap down, hit that 55 EMA, and then we did rally to a new high right at the level. 591.09 was resistance, got very close to it on that 12 o'clock candle. Pulled back slightly, came right back to it. Are we going to push through there tomorrow? Still remains to be seen. We did hit overbought conditions, but let's take a quick look at the charts as we head into the end of the week. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to the news, we did get Fed Powell speaking. He said there is some risk of supply shocks, and as a result of the policy changes that we're seeing, there's a lot in flux, and that there could be more persistent supply shocks for the economy, which is a challenge for the central banks. So he is reiterating that tariff risk that we've been talking about and that he mentioned at the last FOMC. I would say, though, it didn't come to fruition in the CPI data that we just got. CPI went lower. We were supposed to see those initial tariff shocks, and we just did not. CPI went lower than expectations. Didn't even expect a real step up with the tariffs, and we definitely didn't get one. So for now, this seems like a bunch of talk, and they're just a little concerned about what things could be like, but so far we have not seen them. Of course, he did have to voice the risks surrounding real rates going a little bit higher than expectations, and staying higher for the medium to long term, because we just haven't seen what could happen yet, and he's still a little bit concerned with inflation, and the economy continues to stay strong. Therefore, it doesn't make sense for them to be cutting, at least right now. Moving over to seasonality, we've expected a relatively bullish period here for the second half of the month, and so far that has been true, looking quite good as we continue to head into that second half of the month. Might be some small pullbacks here and there, but right now we are expecting to hold this bullishness through the end of the month. Moving over to the economic calendar, we did get good data all day. You can see PPI core number way below expectations. Retail sales not super great, but it was above the zero line. Look at that PPI though, minus 0.4 versus the 0.4 expectation. So much better than expectation on that. Inflation read, same here for regular PPI. Huge moves down. Retail sales, 0.1 versus the 0. Again, better than expectations there. Atlanta Fed GDP, better than expectations. And you can see Fed balance sheet continues to stay flat, outperforming there a little bit. So overall, pretty good for markets. For tomorrow, just a little bit of inflation data. Expecting that to come in better than expectations as well. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, we did rally to that next level. 591.09 was the level in here. You can see it's the low of this consolidation. We're right there. We're almost overbought. We saw momentum step down a little bit here. So you've had a little bit of a decline, slight retracement. Are we going to get a little bit of a decline, slight retracement, third move down? That's usually how it goes. Once you kind of get that second move, maybe a third. Otherwise, we're going to roll here pretty soon. This is a key level for me, 591. You can see it's one of my thicker lines. It's a major turning point here for markets. We'll see if it comes in as resistance tomorrow. Otherwise, this resumption was fueled by all of that good data that we talked about. Next level for me would be 597.63 if we did get through this one here. Breakout, retest, continuation to that next level. Moving over to those tasty charts here on the weekly chart, the main thing we are watching here is that trailing stop on the weekly. That is at 594.85. We are getting very close to that zone. That is where markets would turn based on this indicator, and we're not quite there. It's a little bit less than 1% away. Before we do get that touch, are we going to get that touch here soon? Potentially something to watch for sure. And then looking at the daily, of course, we are still very much extended well above that upper ATR band. Not a super great time to be buying. Typically, there is some kind of pullback when you are this extended. Moving over to the NASDAQ here on the charts, you can see basically unchanged on the day, up just 57 cents. Threw a wick to a higher high, couldn't quite get any higher than that. Didn't even quite touch the level there. 523.24 was the level. Momentum fading, RSI super overbought. Again, not great. Big wicks up, big wicks down. Are we going to see continuation? It's not impossible. Are we going to get a little bit more pullback in time? I think makes more sense here just based off the price action and based off of how extended we are. Obviously, we left lots of gaps along the way. You can see them back here, gap from the 22nd, 23rd, and then you got one here, 30th up to the 1st, and then another one here, of course, 9th into the 12th. Plenty of gaps, and gaps do tend to get filled at some point in the future. Obviously, we don't know when that is, but it is something to keep an eye on over the next couple weeks. Moving over to the Qs, you can see we are still way above that upper ATR band on the daily chart, just like we've been the last couple days, but we are extended. We did flip to to bullish conditions. Obviously, the week is not closed quite yet, but we did get above that ATR resistance right now, 517.76. We're above it, 519.23. And it'll be interesting to see if we do hold that level tomorrow. Do we close below it and hold the trailing stop? This is a weekly trailing stop, so if we do move back below it and close below it tomorrow, then that would be back intact. If we do manage to close above it, your trailing stop right now is all the way down at 415.63. So tons and tons of room on this weekly chart for movement in either direction. That would take you right back to the lows that we had in the middle of April. Then moving over here to the Russell and the Dow, both of these gapped down and had a really strong day, up about 0.5%. And you can see the Dow actually was up a little bit more, close to 0.75%, went all the way to the level, 418.34, gave you a nice entry there. The low of day was 418.49, so right at the level, just a couple of cents off it, could have bought at that level. And then you had a really, really nice move. If you bought at the lows, that would have given you about 1% of potential move. We closed on the high, really nice there. Dow, Russell, same thesis, went much, much lower, close to that 205 area. The low of day was 205.39, so it did go lower like we expected it to yesterday, and then it ended up bouncing from that zone, got right to resistance 208.22 after hours. We're still just a smidgen below it. Are we going to get through there tomorrow? I like that we closed on the high. It seemed to have a little bit of strength, so I did end up holding a short put position into tomorrow. Moving over to the ratios just to see how these have gone this week. You can see the NASDAQ divided by the SPY has had a massive week, and we are right at a key level of resistance here. We pushed clean through this level, pushed right to resistance there, so we'll see if that comes up as a zone of resistance. When the NASDAQ is not leading us higher, that is usually a point where markets are starting to move a little bit lower, so just something to consider there on the ratios. And you can see SPY Russell basically flat, really unchanged over the past 4 weeks, and you can pretty much pick whichever you want there. The SPY has outperformed a little bit this week. It underperformed the previous week. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, these have basically stayed unchanged as well. Apple was down a little bit, did close below the level to 11.55. This does kind of look like a double top. Now we're back below that 55 EMA. Momentum fading, RSI fading. Little bit concerning here, right? This does start to look like it's probably going to head to 207. 207 breaks. We could be headed back to these lows here. And then looking at Microsoft right at the level 453.30, that was the resistance yesterday, threw a wick to it, closed below it again today, fading here after hours. Does not look super great, obviously super extended on the RSI. Moving over to Tesla and NVDA, even these pulled back a little bit after the rocket ships that they were yesterday, down 1.4 and 0.38%. Right in this kind of zone of resistance, still holding support, didn't get anywhere near support or resistance. Tesla did test that 366.64 level and ended up holding that level. Momentum still bullish, RSI overbought. Is this the zone where we start to fade? Again, it's seeming more and more likely that we're getting close to that area. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, just like that, staples is back in play. Massive, massive move from the low of yesterday. Took out that low just for a second, and then we got a 2% higher move. Momentum back to bullish, RSI back to bullish. Absolutely risk off markets here. Huge pivot. You can see volume coming through, pushing that higher. After hours, it's higher, and you can see discretionaries down on the day. Did not close below 215, but we definitely tested it. Momentum fading, RSI fading. This is super interesting here. Is this the point where we start to see sells? I think that is more and more likely. Moving over to breadth, we did not get a continuation lower on breadth, so we did hang out in this area here on 20-day, 50-day, getting back above that 68 level. So structurally here, not bad yet. RSI not fading yet on the 50-day. Momentum still fading. RSI on the 20 still bearish. Momentum on the 20-day still bearish, but structurally we have held in this zone and we have not tested support quite yet. Moving over to yields, look at yields cratering here. This is another move into a safety play. Yields cratering as people buy into bonds and get out of equities. This is a major pivot, something to watch for over the next day or two. If we start to see markets move down, we're starting to see those early indications that this could be a prolonged move lower. Moving over to bonds here with TLT and J&K. J&K still hanging in there, nice and positive on the day. TLT finding some legs up back above that 85.90 level. Again, this is a bullish move. This is a bullish bottom. Probably going to buy some more bonds in here tomorrow. I do like this. You can see After hours, nice little pop. I think this is going to go back to 89. This is a good opportunity. And I do think ultimately this is still going to go to 92 and probably 100 over the medium term, especially if this is popping off the news that we got from Jerome Powell this morning. So bonds, nice opportunity here, especially with long-term governments. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX was slightly higher early in the session and then ended up going lower and pushing back below that 1850 area. Now we're probably headed back to the trend line here. So maybe we get 1 or 2 more days of downtrend before we hit that point, and then that ends up being the bottom for the VIX. But for now, this looks like it could go at least 1 or 2 more days lower. Moving over to my accounts, I did end up holding that put till expiration, made that money on there, so that continues to do well. Did roll out to tomorrow for 76 cents at the 208 position. Not super enthused about that. Want to see that go higher. In the after hours, it is a little higher. Going to be watching that one pretty closely on the Russell. And then the Qs, didn't do anything with it. Made a little money on the call, made a little money on the shares. It's just not going any higher. We're basically at my max profit here, $14.50. So that would put me at $519.50. We're right there. Are we going to get through that level? Probably not, right? So going to be watching it closely. Still going to continue to hold here. I think this is a good position to be in. Plenty of protection and still got about $1,700 in credit that could roll in over the next 30 days or so. Not that I will hold it to expiration, but I absolutely could. And then here pretty soon, these bonds are going to roll off and I'm going to have to make a decision whether I'm going to do that or not. Either way, kind of neutral on markets. I think we could go either direction from here. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the charts today. What did you think of Jerome Powell's comments? Are we going to stay higher for longer? Is that going to be a detriment to markets, or will we still get those cuts later in the year? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.